What's good people? Welcome to hashtag my Be More Project. What's the 410? Where we stand in the gap of the news you can use and the positive stories our spirits need. I'm your host, Dion Joyner Weems. It's like a tribe called Quest. You got to say it all together. And though I wear many hats, they all sit on top of the same mission to uplift, amplify, and empower the truth tellers and change makers on the ground doing the necessary work. Now, whether that's through hashtag my Be More project, what's the 410, my book, that part what some know but won't tell you about motherhood, or as the chief energy officer of Audacity Group, we tell bold stories of impact. And in 2022, through a listening session, we learned what you and I already know. People trust people more than they do a system. And that's why we've set the groundwork to talk to the people at the center of that work, like Akil Parker, founder of All This Math, educator, cultural mathematician, and liberation minded teacher. Let's bring up Akil, shall we?
How you doing?
So Akil, he has more of a like this cool, laid back demeanor. Dion gets excited just by his brain. Like the man is he's brilliant. Okay. Um, Akil, thank you for being here. Before we jump into the questions, I wanted to do your bio, um, but for you to look at this more as verbal flowers. Okay, so I'm going to share. You ready? All right.
Yeah, yeah.
Akil Parker is a numbers revolutionary, turning equations into liberation. As the founder of All This Math, he's on a mission to transform how the Black community sees, teaches, and lives mathematically. From classrooms to kitchen tables, Akil insists that parents are the first and most powerful math educators, and children deserve access to the highest level of mathematical thought. His platforms span YouTube, TikTok, and Everyone Counts Math Symposium, which we'll get into more. He makes math not as a gatekeeper, but to look at it as a gateway. He blends ancient knowledge with 21st century tools, from AI to algebra, reminding us math is not foreign, math is us. To know our numbers is to know our power. And Akil Parker is here to make sure we never forget it. Akil, is that fair?
That's more than fair, actually. Yeah. The greater than sign.
Dope. Okay.
More
Um,
fair.
all right,
Yeah,
thank you for that. So I'm going to, before we jump into the questions, interview questions, we have something called They Ate, right? They Ate,
yeah.
where we ask you 8 rapid fire questions. Don't overthink it. Just say what comes naturally. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Crab cake fried or broiled?
Fried.
Nickname your parents used to call you?
I never had a nickname.
What about friends? No, is this a kill?
Yeah, just my name, or just kill. Just the one syllable.
All right, we'll do
Kill.
it.
Yeah.
Name one song on your Get Pumped, Amped, Fired Up playlist. What you putting on when you need to get?
Probably I can't name one song, but something by Griselda. Something from West Side Gun. Yeah, something from West Side Gun probably. Yeah.
Noted. Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite math symbol?
The equal sign.
Dope. Would you survive a zombie apocalypse?
I would. I'm
I know
confident.
you are very confident, man. You're very confident. It's like what falls after the equal sign, like it's done. Yeah, yeah. Um, favorite classroom study snack?
Classroom study snack. Um Nutri-Grain bars.
Okay, all right. Can you
Yeah.
choose? Okay, now you have to choose one: calculator, mental math, or use your fingers.
Mental math.
Mental math. All right. Last question. If you had 25 hours in a day, what would you do with the extra hour?
The extra hour, I might sleep.
That is more than fair, sir.
Yeah.
And Akil or Keel just ate people. That was the segment. We are done there. With that, let's jump into to you. Um, you're the founder of All This Math, a platform reshaping how Black community relates to numbers. Before it became a movement, what was the lived experience that made you say, math has to be my mission?
Well, I became a math teacher, and I only became a math teacher because of my oldest son, Nasim, who's a junior at Morgan now. um his mother would Me and his mother were expecting, so we were having a baby and I needed a job. So I had to, make something happen, right? Because I was leaving one, I was transitioning from one job, because it wasn't a good fit for me, so I was leaving that job.
Yeah.
But I had a baby on the way, so I knew I needed another job, because I'm gonna have a mouth to feed.
Yeah.
So, I looked into after school tutoring. And then from there, that led to substitute teaching. And that led to long term substitute teaching. And then once I became a long term sub, this is back in 2005, I decided to stick with it because I thought that, if I committed myself to it, to teaching, I might be good at this one day.
Right.
So, that's what happened. And, I just taught for many years in traditional classrooms, and now I'm teaching in non-traditional spaces and running my company, All This Math, and trying to teach math to everybody now, So, um, and as a child, I got good grades in math.
Yeah.
I picked up on things, relatively quickly at times. And I didn't love math when I was a child. I liked it because I like the grades. I like getting good grades. I like the
Yeah.
attention,
Yeah.
and being labeled like, oh, he's the smart
Smart.
kid, and he's good at math. And then I realized, like, oh, so this is something that everybody's not good at this. Oh, okay, let me try to leverage this. Let me try to like milk this for all I
Um,
can, right? So
yeah.
it wasn't until like maybe 6 or 7 years ago, that I really developed a love for math, because I started to understand it on a conceptual level, as opposed to just because, how a lot of us, in school 30 years ago or whatever, we would just get taught algorithms and steps, and we would just
Yeah.
memorize the steps and
Yeah.
just get the
Yeah.
right answer and then keep
Yeah.
keep going to the next problem. But we never knew, like, well, why does log division work? And we didn't care either, because that's how we
No,
was
we
taught.
didn't. Right.
But, nowadays it's like, well, when you divide in fractions or something, it's like there's a reason that everything works out the way it does. And like when you get to know that, that's you start to see the beauty in it. And then, so that's when I fell in love with her. Because I
No.
couldn't see the beauty in her first. I saw the, what is it, the functionality, but
It's
I didn't
that.
see the
Yeah.
beauty. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't see the beauty until more
That's
recently.
that's deep. One, you're the first person. That's a standpoint that I've had internally and never said out loud. I loved school. I tell my boys, mommy was a geek. I enjoyed, doing my homework and things, but the way that you just phrased it was the getting the good grades and seeing the response of, my parents and community. And I'm like, well, this isn't that hard for me to make sure, this happy. Then, I'll lean into this lane.
Yeah.
But I honestly thought that was just something that was in Dion's head. But now you've made me look at like, no, that can make sense from a broader standpoint. So let me ask you, as a child that did well, especially in math, where Dion in West Baltimore, same time period, is hearing how difficult math is.
Hmm.
I hate math. Math is hard. Why did those narratives ever impact you as a child growing up, or as a teacher? How have those narratives impacted your work?
As a child, it impacted me to a certain degree. I've had some rough patches. Like, it seemed like every 4 years I had, like, a rough time in math. Like fourth grade, I remember it was rough for a minute. They tried to put me in this like advanced group, and I felt really bad about that. Like that failure within that advanced group is one of the things that motivates me today, because they put me up in a group with some fifth graders. And and I couldn't catch on to the concepts. um then again in eighth grade, but I still had good grades, but I didn't really understand the algebra. I didn't really understand how it was working. Fortunately for me, in ninth grade, I had two black male teachers at Poly. I had Mr. Brown and Mr. Bessix. Mr. Brown for algebra two, and Mr. Bessix for geometry. And and they were also, in addition to just being solid black men, they were good at instruction. They
Yeah,
they were subject matter experts.
yeah.
So I was able to learn that algebra too. So I think the algebra that I didn't understand in the eighth grade, now in ninth grade, now I did understand it. Because I'm like,
Mhm,
oh, that's I had a bunch of those. Oh, that's all you got to do moments. Oh, that's all it
mhm.
is. Oh, that's how you do it. Oh, okay, all right, I get it now. All right, let's rock and roll. Um, then 12th grade was rough because 12th grade I got caught up in the intimidation by the word calculus, right? Because
Oh,
so I'm thinking that this is too difficult.
yeah,
Just the perception. There's this negative perception around it. It's like, oh, that's hard. It's just the word calculus sounds difficult. We associate that as a difficult connotation, right? That combined with me being in 12th grade, trying to just hang out with my friends and chase girls, be out in the quad at lunchtime. You know what I mean? And
that's it. Yes,
I'm a
yes. Please keep talking that way.
I'm gonna
Yes.
blame it. I'm gonna evade accountability. I'm gonna blame it on the Western girls. That's what I'm gonna do. We'll blame it on the
You
Western girls.
know what to do. Dump love. Go ahead, keep flowing.
So yeah, so I wasn't as focused, but also because I was looking forward to college. Like I wasn't even my mentality was I'm looking forward to college. I'm about to graduate. So
Right, right.
um, I focused on like making sure my GPA was what it needed to be. So when I wasn't really applying myself in my calculus class, I was applying myself more to overcompensate in some of my other courses. So my GPA stayed up how it needed to
Right.
be.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I bought into the hype, so to speak, of like math being difficult at times. As a teacher, I was able to kind of get away from that. Because I started, as a teacher, you have to learn things in different ways because you got to know how to differentiate
Yeah.
your instruction, because you have different types of learners in
Different
that
type
in that
of learning.
classroom. So I think one mistake that I made early in my career and that a lot of teachers make is they teach things the way that they understand it and not
Mm,
necessarily the way the student may understand it. So you may have to learn like, five or six different methods of teaching the same thing. It's kind of like being a good rapper. Like a good rapper can like switch his or her flow up based
you're right.
upon the topic of the
You're
song, based
right.
on if they're collaborating with somebody else. It might be somebody from another part of the country, it's a different vibe where they from. Like you might be like a New York rapper collabing with somebody from New Orleans or something. So it's like a different vibe down there. So it's like, let me switch my flow a little bit to kind of match up,
Yeah.
So teachers need to do this to be able to do the same thing. In order to deliver the best instruction for as many people in the class as possible. But that's a skill that has to be developed, and over time I was able to develop that. And also tutoring helps with that too, because a lot of times teaching, you don't really get to learn or have experience with using different methods, but with tutoring different individuals, like you see their learning style, and you're having like conversations, and you're kind of getting into like how they think, why they answer a certain way, why they think this is this, and then you realize things that you might have never thought, because when you were a student, you never looked at the problem that way, or
No.
looked at multiplication that way, or looked at solving a multi-step equation in a certain way. But now you've met somebody that does look at it that way, so that's really helpful, you know
Can
so yeah.
may I ask you, because one, Justin, even when you speak of your experience at Poly of having just two solid black men who were well versed in their gift, but also in how to share it based
Mhm.
off of how Akil, flows. I'm curious, taking that same approach, um, Baltimore, Philly, how much has your upbringing played a part in your teaching, in your approach, or like you said, within these last 6 years, things have shifted. So I'm curious, how do you bring a sense of place, your sense of who you come from and are, into how you teach and guide?
I think it's everything. It's the largest component and the largest ingredient. Like a lot of the things that I learned at Poly, a lot of things I learned at Roland Park, it comes out in classrooms. It has come out in classrooms that I've taught in the past 20 years. It's come out in tutoring sessions I've had. um I'm glad to be able to leverage that, and it also makes me think deeper about just education in general, because education is really one of the best gifts you can give a person, because that's something that can't really be taken away. I mean, unless the person has like a lobotomy or something. But like education is like once I teach you this, it's like you're gonna know it. You know what I mean? Um, and those people have taught me things, and people taught them those things, and people taught that person those things, and
Mhm.
now here I am, like however many years later, 20 years later, 40, 60, 80 years later, carrying on that tradition and paying it forward. And now people are, can go to my YouTube channel and look
Yeah.
at my 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel, which is a lot of that as a result of things I learned when I was a child. And just, I'm hoping that it continues to be passed on, you know?
Can I speak to you as and full disclosure for the listening audience, right? So everyone knows I have three sons. And early on, I remember reaching out to you,
Mhm.
Akil, for tutoring support. And just as a parent alone, I know that there's a level of frustration if that isn't even your love language. Math is not my love language. Dion, if it comes to ELA, English language arts, let's Dion, it's all in the mix. Math, I find myself, shutting down. But then when you have children, there's a response. Now as a parent, you have a stronger sense of responsibility where you can't clam up for the sake of your child. Can you share some examples of, because you say that it starts with parents, can you share how you've seen parents shift in engaging with you with math, with their student learning math? How does that come together? Because you're kind of like a
So
therapist in a
yeah,
way.
because and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I want people to kind of think of it that way. Because like a lot of times we're able to kind of evade like responsibility, or like evade the healing that we need to experience in order to become better people sometimes.
Yeah.
And with math, it's like it really is that important. And if for no other reason, we want to be able to provide support to our children when
Mm.
they have math homework, when they come home with math homework. We want to be able to help them with the projects. We want to be able to prepare them for the standardized tests that they're going to take at
Yeah.
the end of almost every school year. So we want to be able to do that. So in order to do that, we as adults are going to have to face that bully and, like, stand up to that fear and that discomfort that we have, in order to, if for no other reason, like just to, be able to help our children. And, and then, you'll be able to do it, if you're consistent, if you're a parent and you're consistent. And I think what happens is, when we think about mathematics, you might be 30 or 40, but you're not thinking about it as a 30 or 40-year-old. You're thinking about it as that 11-year-old that was embarrassed in class, or that, 12-year-old or 14-year-old that was embarrassed, got yelled at by the teacher, or didn't
Didn't
do
want to be
well.
called on, like, don't call them.
Yeah. But now, like, if you're 30 or 40, you've lived some life.
Right.
And now, and also back then, your frontal lobe of your brain wasn't even fully developed. That's another thing too that may have made the math more difficult to grasp. But now it
Right.
is fully developed. And also, you've lived life. You've paid bills, you've had rent, you paid rent and mortgage, and rented cars and paid car notes. And
You're
a lot of
right.
the applications and math word problems that you were confronted with when you were like in fourth grade or fifth grade were very foreign to you, because you never went grocery shopping by yourself, probably. You never really, had to do the actual math. But now you've done it. So now when you're looking back at those problems, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense now, because now I have an actual frame of reference,
Yep.
because I've actually lived this life. I've done these things. Um, so yeah, so that's what happens. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I got a
No, take your
notification.
time.
But yeah.
Look,
But
parents need you. Understand.
yeah.
Parents are like seeking this man out. So keep going. Go ahead, Q.
Yeah, but I want us to, but I do want there to be like a paradigm shift. That's one of the things I push for, like a paradigm shift in how we kind of view our responsibility as parents. I think we've we've been conditioned to, and it's so it's not our fault. This is not a, I don't like to beat up on parents because we're doing what we've been taught to do. Basically, good parenting, part of good parenting is just finding the good school for our children. But now society is changing where that's not going to be enough anymore. Once upon a time, that was enough
Right,
to completely outsource the responsibility
right.
of teaching. But now with, changes in technology that's available, just the
Yep,
speed in which the world,
yep, yes,
operates,
yes,
um, we're gonna have to be able to like provide some, some foundational understanding, for our children. And that's gonna require us to, learn some things and develop some skills. And at the same time, it's going to require for like people like myself that have these levels of understanding to provide resources that are palatable and useful, you know, for our for our children or for the parents, and keeping in mind that there are people that are working 2 and 3 jobs, and there are people that don't really get a lot of sleep, and the last thing they may not have time to go take this math class at this in this program. So we got to figure out ways to integrate their everyday life lived experience and make that the math lesson. So when you're riding in the car with your kids, okay, what we see on this dashboard, what we see on these other
yeah,
license plates on these other cars, that's going to be the math lesson. When we go into the grocery store, or when we go get a chicken box or whatever, like
yeah,
we're gonna make a math lesson out of everything that we possibly can.
that makes
So
sense.
that way, when the children go into school, they're not seeing things for the first time. Because what I want for our people, for everybody, right? I'm trying to democratize this experience with math education. And the way I'm trying to do that is I look at it like from my perspective as a math teacher. As a math teacher, I speak from a space of privilege. So with my 3 children, I've said this, even when my oldest son Nassim was a young child, right? I never wanted my children to see something for the first time in math class. If they see it in math class, whatever they see in math class, I want them to have already seen it with me
Oh, mhm,
and been exposed to it, right? Because then they'll be more comfortable with it because they're like, oh, okay, I remember this. Or my dad introduced this to me or
mhm,
whatnot. And I think a lot of math teachers do that with their own children.
mhm,
They're
mhm,
like, we're very proactive. We're
yeah,
like, okay, well, I want to make
yeah,
sure you know how to do this already, so you don't have the opportunity to be stressed and to ever develop any math anxiety. We want to keep
right,
that away from you as far as
right,
possible,
right,
right? So what I want to do is show the community how, even if you're not a math teacher,
right,
even if
right,
you don't have a college degree, it's fine. Like there are things you can do to teach your children certain skills and certain standards, like ratios and proportions, how to do arithmetic with fractions, how to solve, certain types of equations. I can show you how to do that. So that way when your child goes into school and they see it, they're not overwhelmed,
right,
because a
right.
lot of times kids are just overwhelmed, and it's like I've never seen this before, never heard of this. And then the
Oh,
school is not equipped to really cater to every child's needs in terms of how much time they need to learn a topic.
yeah, yeah,
Because we got a scope and sequence, and we got a limited amount of time.
yep,
We got to cover this topic in 3 days. We got to cover this topic in another 2 days. And then, so if you don't get it in those 3 days, then you're just not
yeah,
going to
so,
get it.
yeah,
And math is very cumulative. So now it's like, oh, well, if I didn't get that, then I'm probably not going to understand the next topic. And then I'm
right,
not going to understand the next topic. And that's why a lot of kids just end up checking out. And then
yeah,
every year it's the same thing. So yeah, so I'm really big on this initiative to try to first make parents feel more comfortable with math, right? And then have them feel empowered enough and almost like kind of like like your company have the audacity
mhm,
to believe that they can actually teach their children math,
right.
and then become partners with their children's teachers, you know
That
become
part,
partners with them, as opposed to just, well, I'm just sending them to school, and then that's
outsourcing,
that's my
right,
job, that's
right.
the extent of my job.
No, one, well said, and as you speak, patience, there's certain, character traits that I believe are conducive for math just off of Dion experience, right? And to be in a space where you feel that the person is patient with you, but when you have a classroom of 30 and you've got to move, and so is falling behind, and you've got 3 days to go over that course. You can see how children can kind of fall out of that loop. So you've painted that picture clearly. As you speak, Akil, I'm also reading your hoodie, right? And it's
Oh yeah.
making me think, and I'm going to mispronounce because I'm like, what is it? Hystematics? I know you didn't say
You,
hystematics.
you just said it right. You just said it right.
Hystematics, where
Yeah.
you are taking history and mathematics meet. And I want you to share one for me and for those that are listening, share stories or to give context on how you can connect culture to numbers and unlock understanding in an 11-year-old. I got 3 boys, so I'm just going to keep it
Right.
in my wheelhouse. 11-year-old boys.
So one of the things that I guess part of it is this. One of the things that I think we would benefit from as a community if we just knew more about these historical examples, such as these women that are on this hoodie. And of course, you see Harriet, which, is Harriet Tubman, Asada Shakur, who just passed away recently, who I named my daughter after. Fannie Lou Hamer, who did a lot of work in Mississippi with SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. When those college students like Kwame Ture, Marimba Ani, Bob Moses, Cleveland Sellers, people like that came down south to help with the voting rights drives and whatnot, and create freedom schools. And also at the bottom, Ida
Wow.
B. Wells Barnett, and the work she did, documenting lynchings and, being a journalist. After she was a teacher first and then became a journalist. Born in Mississippi, then migrated to Memphis, Tennessee, and then ended up in Chicago. Um, it's important just for children just to know these people and not just know their names, but not only just be exposed to them during Black History Month,
Hmm.
but to have a ongoing understanding and appreciation of who they are and who they were and the work they did. And not only that, but just the communities they were part of, right? Because it's not about these four individual women, but it's about the collectives that they were part of, and the mission of trying to, make sure that Black people, were able to affirm their humanity, right? So that's the history part of it. But in terms of math, like how would I connect that to math? So as an example, today is Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday, right?
That's what's up.
Now I would have to research what year she was born. I don't have that committed to memory. I probably should, but like I do some people. But it's Fannie Lou Hamer's birthday. So if I was doing a lesson with some young children on addition of like 3 or 4 digit numbers, or subtraction of 3 or 4 digit numbers, or even multiplication or division, I would probably purposely create a problem where the result, whether it be a product, a quotient, a
Mhm.
sum, or a difference, was gonna
Beautiful.
be equal to the year that she was born.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Because
nice.
then once we do the problem, this is just one example, from the hystematics framework. Once we do that problem, then it's like, oh, look at that. You know what that is? That number is significant. That's the year Fannie
Yeah.
Lou Hamer was born. And then the child's gonna be like, well, who's Fannie Lou Hamer? Okay,
Gotcha.
so now what you did is you just created an organic teachable moment. I didn't
Oh,
even have to force it on you. I ain't had to force it on you, force you to learn who Fannie Lou Hamer was. Now you just curious because I just name dropped. And the name dropping is so important because it's a great teaching tool. Because I think about all the stuff that I know about just from listening to rap music for like the last 40 years,
right.
and all the stuff that's just was just nonsense that I just has not helped me in life at all, really.
Got
Just to
you.
know
Got
it.
you.
But
Got
but I
you.
know it because I heard the song so many times. And that whether it was that luxury car, that
Uh,
designer brand,
uh,
that type of gun, that somebody was talking about, or something dealing with cocaine or whatever,
I hear you.
you know what I
I
mean?
hear you.
Just
I
just
hear you.
being dropped in that song, it's a good teachable tool. So we could do the same thing with people like Harriet Tubman, Asada Shakur, Fannie Lou Hamer, and then we can incorporate it in places where they're normally not going to hear about them. Because I never had a math class where I learned about these sisters at the same time.
No.
But I
No.
think I think we should. I think we should connect it. Because also what it does too is it takes math out of the abstract, and it
Yeah.
makes the math more realistic because now it has a story connected to it.
Even like I remember even now that was a simple term, but there were math teachers that would take your own name. Like it's I may not know about going to the grocery store, but the fact that I saw that Dion is in the word problem and she's going
Yeah,
to go pick this up for her brother. So how
yeah,
much
yeah.
it was a certain level of excitement that came because to your point, you
Right.
see yourself, and it makes that connection. So that's it. And it's funny, as you were talking about rap lyrics, one of my I've got a ton of favorite lines, but like Jay-Z has a line, "You're a candle in the sun, that shit don't even out," right? And I've always used that to just show perspective. You're a candle in the sun. Sun can burn the candle. Candle is still light. And from an English, someone who loves literature, right? So if I'm
Mhm.
trying to find ways to another way to describe a situation to my children, I may pull the rap lyric,
Yeah.
say it
Yeah.
to them. And it's like, you see how that shit don't even out? You see? And it's like, oh yeah, like, well, I don't say like the shit don't even out. I don't use curse, but everything else is
Yeah.
okay.
I get it.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that makes perfect sense. I want to know from you, what I like, Akil, is the way that you're able to give real life examples, because I am a real life parent
Mhm.
with twin sixth graders, a freshman in high school. You know, everyone just got their progress reports. This is very real in front of people's faces. So I'd like to, for the audience to understand how they can apply it real time. So I know I'm not, and we've talked about this common myth. I'm not a math person, because I want, after people listen to this, maybe they'll stop using this type of language, because I know I'm going to. I'm not a math person. That myth is so common. What's one moment that you help someone break through that belief, and what shifted in them afterwards? So I don't know if it's like, you don't have to name names, but if there's an example of a student or student and parent that it started off one way, and you're like, Lord, I don't know how this is going to go, but then something clicked, and it let you know that, Akil, you're right where you're supposed to be. Are there any examples you can think of?
I think it comes from I've had situations where, just having a conversation about the definition of math and the purpose of math. Because oftentimes we don't, like, a lot of times when I was in math classes growing up, I never knew what it was for. I
What
just,
is
because
it for?
remember what I said, like, I like getting good grades, so I didn't even care what
Right,
it was for. I just want to get the right answer and get good grades. So that's an excellent question. Like, what is it really for? And I mean, of course, we know if you are able to excel in certain math courses, then that will be a pathway to certain STEM careers and STEM disciplines. And that's great. But I would say even deeper than that, even to the common person, the everyday person. I think about Malcolm X and something that he learned from Elijah Muhammad. And one of his many famous quotes, right, was this: of all of our studies, history is the most equipped to reward our research, right? That
Mm,
always resonated with me. And from there, I kind of have come up with another quote which is similar to that, in about mathematics, where I say that of all of our studies, mathematics is the most equipped to develop our critical thinking ability, our analytical reasoning ability, which leads to us being able to problem solve.
correct.
And as human beings, no matter who you are, how old you are, how young you are, where you live, you're going to have problems. There will never be a utopia. So, but some people have problems that are more significant because problems become exacerbated and they escalate when you don't know how to solve them. It's like a toothache. What happens? The toothache don't go away by itself. You
Mm-mm.
gotta you gotta go solve that problem. But if you don't, then it just gets worse and worse and worse, right? So if we learn how to problem solve, even if it's in a math classroom, right? Math is probably one of the only classes where you're just getting practice with problem solving. Like,
That's
every
true.
single day, you're practicing problem solving. You're practicing using critical thinking. You're practicing using analysis and analytical reasoning, which are highly transferable skills that
Mm,
every human being needs to use no matter what situation you're in. Whether you're dealing with your husband, your wife, your baby mom, your baby dad, your
mm,
supervisor at your job, your coworker, somebody that, in customer service, and you're trying to get a refund on a product and this person on the phone is giving you a hard time. We all need to have critical thinking ability in order to know how to figure out how to solve those problems. Even in traffic, like, a lot of people do stupid things in traffic, and sometimes I think it's because they're just inconsiderate people, but sometimes I think it's because they're just not intelligent enough to really understand the environment, the surroundings, and what's going on, and what's going to happen as a result of them doing this. Like if I go this way, then they're not able to think on that level. And I
Mm,
think it all goes back to a lack of critical thinking ability.
hmm.
And so that's what the math is really about. The math is really about developing critical thinking ability and being able to be a conscientious thinker. When you think about word problems are all about consequential thinking. Like, what's going to be the consequence if I do this, right? So if Johnny has 5 apples, okay, then if he gets 5 more apples, what's the consequence of that? Well, the consequence, you're gonna have 10 apples now. But even since I brought that up, I want to say this because we joke about that all the time. I think what we need to be doing, and this is probably leads to a lot of confusion that children have. First of all, we need to have a conversation about why he got 5 apples in the first place. What's he doing with all these apples? What's he about to do? I never had 5 apples in my life. I mean,
That's
I got
fair.
when
That's
I as
fair.
a grown man, when I start, I'm buying groceries from my house, I'm gonna have a bag of apples. But when I'm a child, like, why would I have 5 apples? I'm gonna have 1 apple. So first, we got to before we start doing calculations and computation, we got to first talk about why you got 5 apples in the first place, because and that actually provides context,
It
right?
does, and I'm a big
Provides
fan of
context.
context. Mm-hmm.
And I'm the type of learner, so I see why like the children may end up giving wrong answers because they're distracted by trying to understand the story in the background. It's like, well, first, before we even get into all that, like, why does he have 5 apples? What's he about to do with all these apples? What's going on? This does
That's,
not make sense to me.
that's
But I
fair.
but I think that's an important conversation,
That's
right?
fair.
Um, and I think that speaks to another issue of like us just textbooks and whatnot just being more realistic and being more relevant.
I hear you.
Sometimes they're trying to get children to practice a skill, and they're not taking into consideration if the method by which they're trying to get children to practice the skill is even reasonable. You know, but yeah, but that's consequential thinking. Like, what is the consequence? And that's a life skill, like being able to think in terms of consequences. Because a lot of people just do stuff because, well, it feels good right now.
Yeah.
Like Jay-Z line,
Yep.
fuck tomorrow, as long as the night before was sweet.
Yeah. Huh.
No consequences. I do not care about the consequence. But when you get trained in terms of thinking about consequences at all times, it doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to make the right choice, but at least you know what the right choice is.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
might lack discipline and you might not care. Like, listen, nah, I'm about to crash out. Like,
It is.
but you made a conscious decision to crash
Yeah.
out. It's
Yeah.
not like you actually thought that was a good idea. You
I
knew it
hear
wasn't a good idea, but it's like, you know what? I'm doing it anyway. I don't care if it's not a good idea. But I think mathematics can also help us to develop consequential thinking ability, right?
you.
So, but all these things have to be explained, and I think teachers have to explain these things to children. Parents have to have these things explained to them, because the parents were once upon a time children that were in classes where their teachers may not have explained the value of math, and for a lot of people, math becomes like this necessary evil. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know I got to do well in this, but I don't really know what it's really for, right? And the thing is, once you really learn the math, then you start to really see, oh, this is how I could use this. Oh, I could use this for this. And
Yeah.
something else about that that's very important. When people say, I'm never going to use this, this isn't going to affect my life, why do I need to learn this?
Yeah.
I think one thing we're missing out on is considering, well, there are people that are learning it. So even if you decide that it's not for you,
Mm-hmm.
we got to think about, well, what about the people that are learning it?
Mm-hmm.
And what are they doing with that skill and that knowledge? And we
Mm-hmm.
live in a very competitive society. So those people that may end up going on to
Right.
earn bachelors and masters and PhDs in mathematics, and they go work for these think tanks, and
I hear
they
you.
end up coming up with doing the background and creating algorithms that lead to like Project 2025 and things like that.
No.
Right. So they're working for government entities and corporations that are major media outlets that are creating algorithms that are going to try to dictate to us what we
Yeah,
like
the
and
kill.
dislike, right? So that's what they're using the math for. So if they're using if some of those people are using math for that, if we sit back and say, well,
I don't need
I
it.
don't
What?
want to use it, I don't need it, we're setting ourselves up for a type of asymmetrical warfare. So it's like math is a weapon. Math can be weaponized. So some people are using it as a weapon and doing things that are inevitably going to affect all of our lives. So if we say, I don't even want to learn how to use the weapon, then we're disqualifying ourselves, and we're automatically going to lose. So
Damn,
that's something else
man,
you got to think about.
you have just so I'm a full disclosure, algebra, calculus. I'm like, ayo, I don't see how I've used that over the course of my last 24 hours. But now you have just shown me how the math is weaponized against me. I guess it's the same way as for people who say, I don't follow politics. I don't care about politics. I'm like, yo, well, guess what?
Exactly. Exactly.
Politics gives a fuck about you.
Right.
It wakes up every
Right.
morning thinking about you. So now I'm looking at math. When the boys get home from school, it's going to be a deep conversation here. Well, and it kind of, because here's the thing, right? So test scores, everyone goes to the test. That's the measure of success. You go deeper than that, like you're measuring deeper. So I guess my question is, how do you define success when it comes to math education, right? If it's just Dion showing her report card, is that success? It doesn't feel that way, the way that you speak
Nah,
how math is used.
that could be success, but in a lot of cases, I mean, children, they learn the game. Like school in many ways is a game. It's a hustle in many ways. And
Fair.
sometimes, like, children learn the hustle. They learn how to do school. Do the school hustle to get good grades,
Mm-hmm.
without really learning. Because and a lot sometimes it's not their fault. It's just the way the classroom is set up. It's maybe the culture of the school. A lot of times, your grade may be more dependent upon, like, just submitting assignments, that do not necessarily correlate with a certain level of understanding. It's like, well, I turned in my classwork, I turned in my homework, but that doesn't really mean that you know what you're doing, or you can speak intelligently about geometry, or explain to me, like, how do I know if this is an equilateral triangle? It doesn't necessarily mean that, you know what I mean? Um, we got to, like, really, have conversations about why, like why does this work like this, or why is this the correct answer, and if you get a wrong answer, why is it the wrong answer,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
feel comfortable and confident with that. And I think that's success, when you can really explain, like, when a child can explain, like, why they got the right answer or why they got the wrong answer.
Yeah.
And then when the child has the motivation and the confidence in themselves to say, okay, yeah, this is wrong because of this reason, and
Yeah.
this is how I fix it. This is what I should have did,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's success. But again, the school setting often is not conducive to that. So
Mm.
we have to figure out as a community how to make the home, how to how to truly show people how education can start in the home, and in ways that are feasible, because everybody's home is not the same. So in
No,
one
it is.
person's home, like,
No.
one person may have the resources and the time and the energy and ability to say, all right, I got this room over here. It's the den, but we don't really use it like that. This is going to be like a classroom. Like, I'm gonna, like some people did during the pandemic. Like,
Correct.
this is going to become
Correct.
like a classroom. Some people may not have that type of just
No.
may not have that type of space in their house. So we got to figure out, well, how we gonna make the home a space for learning in a different type of household, where the resources may not be as available.
Yeah.
Or can we create something where people can converge at a certain place, or a library, or a church, or a masjid, or something like that? Like, how can we do those types of things? But I think the pendulum has swung so far away from parental involvement, not because, and I want to be very explicit about this, not not because black parents don't care about education. Black parents do care about education. I think people do the best they can with the resources they have. Also, we're very distracted by a lot of other things. It's kind of like, some school administrators may complain, and some teachers may complain and say, well, oh, they don't come, they're not coming to the back to school night, they're not coming to the report card conference, but they're going to be at the Beyonce concert, or they're going to be at the
Yeah.
Jay-Z concert. But
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
what we're not taking into consideration. Jay-Z and Beyonce have a multi-billion-dollar marketing machine behind them, right? We've also grown up with them, right? So that's very different. A lot of times people didn't have the same type of relationship and experience with school.
No, they
Also,
didn't.
also at
Interesting.
also at that particular school, the school may have this kind of laid back attitude where it's like, I don't really have to market this. They should just want to come on their
Yeah,
own.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, that's not really realistic. That's ideal. That might be ideal,
Ideal,
but it's
ideal.
not realistic. You gotta market things. You gotta, get people to want to do things, that they might not otherwise do.
That's so
You know?
I'm just 1, I'm in total agreement. Um, 2, I'm just thinking about hearing a clip from you speaking about math, and then I'm being told that, there's a meet the teacher night or something. Well, if I got to know this particular teacher in the most authentic way, then you know what? I don't mind after working all day, having to come back up to the school at 6 in the evening when I still got to get food together, dinner for the boys. They still need time for homework for me to now sit down for Kill. But because the school has put a Kill in front of my face for me to get a feel for who he is, that's marketing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my language, right? So that's marketing, branding. So that it makes phenomenal sense, which makes me want to understand more the Everyone Counts Math Symposium. What is it? What is your intention with it? What can people expect? Can you share what this is?
So this symposium is taking place on Saturday, November the 15th, from I believe 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And it's going to be a space where there will be different organizations and vendors there providing resources, educational resources, with a focus on mathematics. An opportunity for members of the community to come out and just be in a space where there's some positive energy around mathematics overall. Oftentimes, even when we talk about mathematics, we often have these like negative conversations. People end up trauma bonding about their negative experiences in math class when they were younger.
Yeah.
And we don't really get to have, positive conversations around math and, start to, think differently about math and see the benefit of it. Like I said, it's like a necessary evil for a lot of people. And even a lot of students that excel in math don't really like it that much. It's just, again, I got to get this grade, So they, even a lot of them end up not even considering going into STEM disciplines, even if they get straight A's in math. A lot of times, unfortunately.
Right.
So the symposium is, and it's, my company, All This Math, is one of the sponsors. Another sponsor is the Ryan Institute, headed by Dr. Dante Ryan and Tony Ryan,
Mm,
his wife.
yeah.
And the lead organizer is Tori Rose, the connector. And there are going to be some other organizations that are going to, become involved as well as we, get closer to the date. But it's a opportunity for the community to come out and us to be in the space and have do math activities and just some other things similar to like a resource fair, similar to the
Mm,
resource fair block parties that city
mm.
schools was providing throughout the summertime, so kind of a similar type of vibe.
That sounds ok and it's I'm sorry, I may have missed it. Where is it going to be?
We haven't finalized the location yet.
Okay, fair.
Originally, it was supposed to be in West Baltimore, but I think that location fell through. So, we're working on finalizing a new location.
Well, best believe my Be More project, I'm going to reach out to the folks to just see how we can support. One that is just you're setting the table.
Hmm.
You're giving space for a really necessary conversation. And by us talking today, I don't believe people understand how necessary it is. Like the way, Akil, that you talk about math as a form of liberation
Hmm.
is not language that I grew up with. So I would love for you, and you've definitely talked that way. I just want to continue to lean into the math. You said math is liberation. When did you first realize numbers could be more than just a subject, but a tool for freedom? Like how, when you're in conversations with folks and you bring this up, how do you put it into layman's terms for them?
So I think it came out of me just like studying a lot of like African centered scholars, from the past, like, Amos Wilson and, Kwame Ture, Dr. John Henry Clark, and like just listening to their old lectures and reading some of their writings and then recognizing that a lot of the things that they were saying and the logic they were using to explain why this is valid for our community, they w- they mirrored math principles that I was teaching in my algebra classes or my geometry classes or my statistics classes. Like, and it was all very mathematical to me. So that's when I realized, like, oh, this is really one and the same. Like this all like this makes sense, right? Um, and then also realizing how and thinking about how mathematics is such a gatekeeper, especially algebra one.
Mhm.
Algebra one is such a gatekeeper to so many opportunities. And one of the things that I think about is, or I would like to see in our community is, I want people to be able to do whatever career they want to, and I want them to have access. But what often happens is people end up choosing from what's left,
Hmm.
right? Now, a lot of that is because people don't have a strong background in mathematics. I know a lot of people that would be great computer scientists, great engineers, great architects, or doctors, other types of physicians, registered nurses. But why aren't they? Because there's a lot of math involved in the formal preparation.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying I do think the world needs social workers. I think the world needs um, people in certain liberal arts areas. The world needs that. However, well, I shouldn't say however. I just hope that the people that go into those fields are going into those fields because they sincerely want to, and not because they feel that this is all they qualify for. Because the
Yeah.
other opportunities require having a background in math, and they don't have it. I want for people to become social workers that also could become neurosurgeons.
Wow. I hear
'Cause,
you.
like, I qualify. I have a strong math background and a strong science background, and I could go get a bachelor's degree and then go to medical school if I want to. I'm
Wow.
prepared for that. But I don't want to do that. I want to be a social worker. I want to be like Dr. Pratt and and her that couple that started the Blacks and Wax Museum. I want to be like them. I want to do that type of work and be a part of the community in that way. But I don't want to do that just because I feel like that's all I can do.
I
These are the
hear
only
you.
majors that are left for me,
I
right?
hear
So
you.
that's what I want for our people. And you know, like I said, like math is a gatekeeper. It's a gatekeeper, and also we got to think about this on on a political level. One thing that should motivate us to want to excel in math is that we're being hustled, like we're being conned, and because there are certain entities that create environments where these ideas about how math is too difficult and
Yeah.
then how math is irrelevant, that ideology is allowed to thrive, it's promoted, right? And what
Hmm.
happens is when you adopt that and you accept it for yourself, and then you start saying, I'm never going to use this, it's useless, it's dumb, I don't need that, and it's too difficult. You're disqualifying yourself. So what you're doing also, this affects the job market. This affects the economy because now there are groups of people that do not get told that are not fed that
I
type of
hear
idea
you. I
about
hear
the
you.
difficulty of mathematics, about the uselessness of mathematics. So that makes it easier for them because they have less competition,
Correct. Correct.
right? It's just like if you tell somebody, running is dumb. Running is stupid. Should nobody run? And then you start to believe that. You say, you know what? Yeah, I'm never running. Once you say that, you're never going to be a football player. You're never going to be a basketball player. You're never going to be
See.
a soccer player. You're never going to do any of those things that require running once you buy into that propaganda. So it's all a con game and it's all a hustle. And it gets fed to our children at a very
Yeah.
young age and we
Yeah.
buy into it.
Yeah.
So that in and of itself should be one reason of
Yeah.
many for us to say, nah, I'm gonna learn this because they trying to they playing in my face.
Yeah, it's a okey doke. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So no, and it's funny, and I'll wind down on this. Always leave room for to fill the space with what you feel is missed. But you brought up Dr. Martin, Dr. Martin, and Dr. Elmer Martin, Dr. Martin's husband, who formed the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum, and it just got me to thinking about generations. Like I was 4 years old when it was just a storefront, And my grandfather was so proud of that museum and how he preached it to me that when Dion became older and I'm marketing the city, now I want to make sure that how am I helping this museum? And then I have 3 children and I'm telling this, I'm like, generation, you start. So I want Dion, come on, keep on, keep on. I'm trying not to use this train of thought. It's the fact of continuing to look through the prism of generational change.
Hmm.
I would love to see what your vision of just a Baltimore looks like if every child did approach math with this level of, of I can do. What does a Baltimore look like generations from now when they start to take on this new mentality? What does that look like for you?
There definitely will be more political and economic control held by the people that live there, but that are originally from those communities. Because then we start to understand like how political decisions are made. There's so much mathematics in politics, that a lot of people take for granted. There's all these
Huh,
statistics that are thrown around. I mean, if we think about like redistricting and gerrymandering and all that, that's
yeah,
algebra and geometry right there. So, and a lot of things that happen, we don't think they're a problem. See, again, like I said earlier, one of the major purposes of mathematics is to understand problem solving, but it's also
right.
to be able to recognize when something is a problem.
No problem.
A lot of us lack the ability to see a problem and recognize it, even if it's right in front of us. Right. So that's part of that's a mathematical skill and ability right there. So oftentimes there are things that happen in our communities and are happening kind of behind the scenes, but we're not locked in. We don't have an
Right.
awareness. So when you start to become more mathematically oriented, you start to become more astute in certain areas,
Mm,
and you start to ask more questions, and you start
yeah.
to ask why, and then you become a problem because
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
that those that want to just maintain the status quo, they don't want you'll be labeled a troublemaker, which is cool, like because sometimes
Good
there needs to
trouble.
be trouble in order for
Trouble.
things to improve,
Correct.
right? It's like King, and when one of the things that I learned from studying Dr. King, you know, and which is a mathematical concept also. This concept of negative peace and positive peace, right? Because things can be peaceful, but it's like the book. If you're in elementary school and it's a bully that takes everybody lunch money every day, and you become used to it, and you're like, you know what, I don't even want to fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, so every day, 8 o'clock in the morning, he walk over to your desk, you just give it up. Like that's peaceful. That's peace. That's not positive peace though. That's negative peace. You're being robbed every day, right? So we got to
Right.
also understand that there's a distinction between positive peace and negative peace, right? So that's why you got to start trouble sometimes in order for there to be positive peace,
Yeah.
right? And people will call you out and say, well, you asking too many questions, or you always starting trouble. Like, nah, the problem is the trouble has already been there. It's just been normalized and it's been accepted. But now it shouldn't be this way. This is not how
Correct.
things should be. So
Correct.
yeah, so those types. So I think a Baltimore definitely would be under the control. There would be much more control coming from the community, coming from
Mm,
people that actually like from the
wow.
community and of the community, because we would actually know, okay, this is how things should be, and we and
Right.
we and we wouldn't find out about things at the last minute, because oftentimes when there's the community meeting, or there's
Yeah.
the town hall meeting,
Yeah.
or it's in the media, a lot of
It's
times by the time that happens, it's too late.
you're
They
right.
didn't already they didn't already sign the papers. Now it's just an issue of placating the community and trying
Yeah.
to make it
You're
seem
right.
like, oh, okay, look, no, we had asked for community input. No, y'all already made this decision 2 years
Right.
ago. So the
Right.
issue is, once
Right.
we become more aware from studying math and becoming more mathematical, then 2 years ago when they're making the deal, we'll know about it. We'll be able to
Yep.
figure more of us in the
You're
community will be
so
able to
right.
figure out about it and stand up and say something,
You're so right.
to prevent it. So I think those are some of the outcomes. But yeah, but in terms of Baltimore, like I mentioned, I'm trying to democratize this, because like I went to Roland Park and I went to Poly, and I got exposed to certain levels of math and certain types of teaching that everybody didn't get exposed to.
It's so
And I had access to certain resources that everybody didn't have. And I knew people that was smarter than me, but they
I
didn't
got
go to the spaces I went to. They didn't go to the summer programs I went to, or the Saturday
right.
programs, or the schools I went to. So they didn't have the opportunities. So they weren't able to move how I've been able to move these last 30 or however many years, so I want for everybody to have the access to those things that I was able to have, and which is why I offer the tutoring, but not only that, um, the YouTube channel, the All This Math YouTube channel. It's a way to like make everything I learned and have been teaching over the years available and accessible to everybody.
to everyone.
So it's out there, and all you got to do is have Wi-Fi. You
All right,
know,
so we have not subscribed by the end of this call, by the end of this conversation. If you have not subscribed to All This Math on YouTube, what have you been doing? But I also, before you leave, Akil, I'd love for you to be able to give flowers to because I'm thinking about generation. It's because of your parents and your
definitely.
parents' parents that got you here to be doing what you're doing for your children. And when they become older, like when you talk about your oldest, he's going to, my expectation is going to be doing the same thing. So would you mind taking a moment to talk about the generations that got you here?
Definitely, just even the ancestors that I never was able to meet. I'm thankful for everybody. Just and that just having being part of the lineage that I'm part of, because everybody, there's something from everybody that I embody, because that's just how things go, right? And then my children will embody everything from the lineage, So I'm just thankful for everybody, especially my parents, instilling, certain things in me as a child. My mother especially was more um the one to provide like me with my mathematical foundation. So I got to shout her out, definitely. And but then my father, when we think about hystematics, my father, my mother too, but more so my father, providing me with the lessons about our history, and letting me know that, you know you're not going to learn this in school. And actually in school they might tell you the opposite, because the
Mm,
textbook may say the opposite, but the
mm.
textbook is not, is an untruth. It's false, right? So you got to know that, you got to kind of be made aware in advance.
Yes.
So and the thing about it is, to that point, a lot of people have been there are a lot of people in our community that have been, very consistent with preparing their children in terms of historical lessons. And what I'm saying now with the work I'm doing with trying to advocate for parents to become more involved in mathematics education, it's really just the same concept, but now we're just applying it to a different subject, just applying that to math. Because
So,
there are a lot of us that knew about ancient Africa before we went to school, and we knew, that these so-called founding fathers, many of them were slaveholders,
mhm.
like, and that's important to know, so you have an understanding of where you actually live at. Because
Yeah.
then when something very racist and disrespectful happens, then you won't even see it as crazy. You'll see it like, well, that
Mhm.
makes sense,
Yep.
because the person that this guy George Washington, that's on the $1 bill and on the 25-cent piece, and got streets named after him, and got elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools named after him all over the country. He owned slaves. He owned enslaved Africans, right? So that sets the tone. That lets you know where you live at, right?
That's true.
So, and just because it was 200 years later, 200 years ago, I should say, doesn't mean that things have changed,
Mm-mm.
right? So, um, so yeah, so I mean, so when we prepare our children that way with that historical awareness, we can also prepare our children with a mathematical awareness, um, but yeah, and then that's because and it's something that's, and another thing I want to say is it can't be extracurricular. It can't be like, yeah, it'd be nice if we did that. No, this has to become mandatory. We got to
Uh,
start looking at it like that. It's got to be
a
mandatory.
requirement. Just like
Yeah,
this is a requirement. But with
yeah,
love, like the thing is, even when
yeah,
you for Dion, I'm correcting myself based off of this conversation with you. The
yeah,
fact that requirement comes with a heaviness of I don't want to do it, but this should be something we should want to because it's ours.
yeah,
It's
yeah. And
ours.
the thing I say too about math is like, even if you're a person that's listening to this and you say you hate math, math is one of the things, like, you might have to hate it until you love it. You
The
might have to
don't
hate it. You have to hate it until you love it. Um, like a person, like some of us have dated.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, some of us date people and fall in love with people. And it's like when you first meet them, it's like, nah, I ain't really like her that much. Or,
Mhm.
she ain't really like me that much. But then once we got to know each other, then it's like, okay, All right. You're not that bad. You're not that
Well,
bad. All right.
she gets me. She gets me.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
so Akil, let me say first, this is our first conversation on what's the 410, but this is not our last. I'll continue to applaud and cheer you in the community and in your work, and look forward to having you back again. It was an honor talking to you, really enlightening, and I feel smarter. Don't throw no math problems at me just yet, but
Yeah.
I'm revving up. So with that,
I really, can
go
I
ahead.
say one thing? I really appreciate, the compliments, and I want to say this to the audience too, man. It's like, especially, us as brothers, man, like it's something about a black woman paying you a compliment. It's something about it. It just make your whole day good, man. Like it's just, just make your whole day go right, you know?
We need you. We need you. We
Yeah.
need you. And I mean, man, Akil, this more to come. On that note, hashtag my be more. What's the 410? See you back here soon. Peace.
Peace.
I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. Even if it means you gotta leave me. And you don't wanna be baby. Look, baby, I'm straight. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great. I just want you to be great.